Today I'm here with my good friends April and Davey Orgill, and they have the most fascinating family and story. First, I want to talk about your family a little bit because you guys have 6 kids, plus you always have an exchange student. As long as I've known you, which I think I met you 6 or 7 years ago, right? At Jordan and Bubba's house.
We did our first one 13 years ago, and we've taken breaks, and like when I have kids, like I'll take a break the next year, but most of the time we have an exchange student.
You guys are literal saints. You're amazing. They have these 6 amazing kids, and they also have a huge business on like YouTube and Instagram and what else?
TikTok. Necessary evil, yeah.
You guys have so much going on, and I always admire you from afar. Even though I've met you several times before, I always admire you guys from afar because you always seem so happy. And I know this is the most loaded question, but why do you and your kids always seem so happy?
Wow. Do you want to answer that one?
I mean, part of it is it's not a reality TV show that we put out there, so we put online what we want online. I mean, we have our
The real
shares of
stuff.
ups and downs. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to, not that it's a fake life, but we don't want to put
We're
out,
not always happy.
Yeah.
things that our kids wouldn't want online.
Yeah.
20 years that make them look bad. We keep that off but yeah, we go through our shares of ups and downs just like anybody else.
We don't care what anyone thinks of us. Like I was telling you earlier, the only person, I teach my kids this, I'm like, the only person you need to care about what he thinks of you is God. And you know God loves you. And if you focus on what he thinks of you, like nothing else matters.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Then you can be confident to just go be who you are, and who cares.
And otherwise, I would not be able to survive in this space. I don't think anyone can. And that's why you see so many people leave this space. I think it's because they forget that aspect.
That it's so hard that people just eat you alive, and they think they have license to do that.
Right. Yeah. And so like if you don't keep that focus, it's not healthy.
I love that. I have to ask, like, you have the most fascinating upbringing, at least to me. You grew up in a polygamist, what would you say, that colony? Like, how would you say that?
I would say I grew up going to a polygamist school and grew up in that church.
Yeah.
But like the way it worked when I was a kid was people that lived all over the valley. It wasn't like a compound. Like I think a lot of people think like that I lived in this like compound, but there are places like that now.
Yeah.
And there probably were then, but it's not how I grew up. I grew up in a normal neighborhood in West Jordan, and I would drive, my mom would drive. It was like a K through 12 private school. It was called Alta Academy, and my yearbooks are something to behold. Like I should have brought one. But we would drive the like 40 minutes up to the big Cottonwood Canyon or little Cottonwood Canyon right behind Lakai. There was the school right there. And Warren Jeffs was the principal.
Warren Jeffs.
I saw him literally every single day except for Saturdays. And he was like, I saw him every day. He was the principal, so he would do this morning class with K through 12. Everyone would go in the same room, and he would basically just preach for an hour every single morning. And if you missed a day, like if you were sick, you had to get a tape and listen to the tape and then take notes and hand it in to pass your classes.
And
like,
what kind of things would he talk about in these lectures?
They would I like to describe it as like teachings of man mingled with scripture. Because it was like they would bring in scripture, but then like tell you what it meant. And sometimes I was just like,
or even at that young age, you could discern that there was something off.
I could tell like that's a little weird. Like it just the way you feel, like my intuition would kind of just be like, but it was more like when you would say something like this, like girls treat boys like they are snakes. Do not go by them. Do not touch them. And girls treat boys like they're snakes, and boys treat girls like they're snakes. Like the separation of trying to keep, like using fear to keep the boys and the girls away from each other.
Wow.
And he was telling like kindergarten through 12 this, like very fear motivated sayings. And then like the next thing out of his mouth would be like, remember, keep sweet. Like
I was going to ask that.
Yeah. The keep sweet thing was like all over. If I was writing notes, it was like keep sweet. You were writing keep sweet like every single day, several times.
That's a real thing.
Absolutely.
I watched so many documentaries where it was like the women were told keep sweet and obey.
Yeah.
That line, but it wasn't the men that were told that, right?
We were all boys and girls in the room when I heard it, because I left, well, we were excommunicated when I was in 8th grade, or right when I finished 7th grade. The prophet at that time, their prophet, basically the way my mom describes it, because I didn't hear the conversation, I just was told, like, you're going to public school. She says that they were all told, sell your house in the valley and move to Colorado City or you're excommunicated.
Okay, so this is before it actually became the polygamist compound in Colorado City.
So they already had that, and we would go there for conference every April.
Interesting.
And my aunts and some of my uncles and like cousins would live there. But like they had their saints kind of spread all throughout the world, really, but like a lot of them throughout the valley here. Because I know that there was some in like Canada and some in like Mexico. And so there was little different groups all over, and they would all kind of like my 5th grade teacher grew up in Canada in their group, and then was like assigned to be a prophet's, like the wife of the prophet. He was like 80 and she was like 21. Or like maybe when she got married, she was younger. But like she was my 5th grade teacher, and she was this young, beautiful, sweet woman. And I knew that's when it really hit me. I remember being in 5th grade and being like, this pretty girl is married to that old guy. I remember thinking like, that's weird that this pretty girl that I really admired her. She was so sweet. And she actually made me like long john underwear, like garments kind of, when I was in 5th grade, because I would get in trouble a lot for wearing immodest clothes. Like I would be like because here's the thing, my mom was awesome.
She sounds amazing.
She's amazing. My mom's amazing. She was left a single mother of 6 kids, ranging between like, I think I was 5. My younger brother was maybe 3.
Can you tell me that a little bit? Why was she a single mother?
So my dad, he decided to divorce my mom. And
Was she the only wife?
Yeah.
She was
So
the only
my
wife.
mom and dad were assigned married. Like they didn't really know each other. They maybe had met like once or twice. They like had met, they were kind of acquaintances, but they weren't like in love or dating or anything. And like they were assigned to be married. Possibly that my dad like suggested it. I don't know like how that exactly went down, but I just know it was kind of like an arranged marriage. Like the prophet would just be like, I've had revelation that you are supposed to marry this person. And so they got married, and she wasn't even like out of high school yet. She was like, she dropped out of high school. I don't remember exactly what she said, when she was like 16 or 17, and then ended up getting married like either right before she was 18 or at 18, and then had kids really quick and just had 6 kids. And then things were rough, and he was like, do this stuff or else. And she was like, okay, then.
Did she convert to it, or were her parents part of it?
My grandparents, I think my grandparents converted, and I think his parents, like both sets of my grandparents, it sounds like they were kind of brought in. And it even gets really confusing because my mom kind of thinks like I remember looking at the pictures of the prophets on like the walls at school, and it was like Joseph Smith, and then like John Taylor. Is that the next one? He knows more than me.
Brigham Young.
Brigham Young. Oh, Brigham Young. And then like John Taylor, like all these. And then there was like the next one. There was like a very clear split when the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says who was the prophet, and then who they were like, no, this guy's the prophet.
Okay, so you made a really good point. I'm sorry, I'm like asking you so many split questions here, but it's so fascinating to me. Are they the same church? Can you clarify that?
As us?
Right, as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is that the same as?
No.
Okay.
No, FLDS is what would distinguish them. They would be the fundamental Church of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So that's how they identify themselves, is FLDS.
No, all this, I just want to make sure people do.
So yeah, like absolutely not the same, but I just gave a talk in church actually about my conversion story, and this was one of the biggest things I talked about, because I think it's the biggest thing that kind of helps people understand, like, how could you be a part of this and then be excommunicated and then want to go back to what seems like the same thing.
This
right?
is probably the most fascinating sacrament meeting anyone has
Everyone
ever been
was like, what? So it came down to authority. So there's a lot of people and false prophets that can sit there and be like anyone can be like, oh, I'm a prophet.
Totally.
And lead people astray. So authority is absolutely important and like necessary. So if you take a man, any man, and I talked about this, like there's no such thing as a prophet in any scripture, Bible, Book of Mormon, whatever, that is a perfect person. Jesus is the only perfect human that has ever lived. So we have all these prophets like Moses, Noah, right? Like Abraham. They are people that have made mistakes. Like even when I read like Nephi and he's like, oh, wretched man that I am, you know, like he made mistakes. So like when people try to start picking apart Joseph Smith or even our prophet now, I'm like, well, yeah, because he's not Jesus. He's a man, and it's okay for men to make mistakes.
Right.
Like the whole reason why Jesus came was because all men are going to make mistakes.
Such a good point.
But is that authority there? Are they the prophet on the earth?
So who defines whether or not they have that authority? Or how
I
do you
think
know?
that God defines, and I think that what the problem was is that God said to that prophet, like, we're not practicing polygamy anymore right now.
Yeah.
And they went, nope. And they decided to make their own prophet that made that still a possibility. And it boils down to power and selfishness and like greed. And they would use this, like the church I grew up in, that's how you got more wives, is how successful you were financially, how much tithing you were paying. Yeah, my parents did not make, we were like pretty average with my dad and my mom, income or low, anything, probably low income. And my dad didn't make enough money to get another wife. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But I know like some of my friends' parents like were very successful, dentists, doctors, whatever. And they were like given, like I have one friend that her dad was like really successful and there was two moms, like they got another wife. And my two friends that I grew up with, they were sisters and they were born like a month or two apart. And they were my best friends. And so I went through like all school with them. And it didn't work out good because like these people are so good. I still am friends with them. But like the dad and the mom, the second wife ended up getting divorced, but like he still made sure she was taken care of. Because like then they left too the same time as us. They got excommunicated too because they were like, this is not right. We're not going to sell
Something feels off.
everything and go there.
Oh, because was it Warren Jeffs that had asked everyone to do that?
Yeah. No, it was his dad, Rulin.
Rulin Jeffs. I only know these from all the documentaries I've watched. But
Yeah.
And he asked everyone to take their own money and loans and buy a house, right?
So he basically said as I remember it, the valley's going to be burned. They use fear. Like the valley's going to be burned. Everyone will die unless you sell your house and move down here. And then what they would do is you would sell your property you own here and you would take the money that you got or whatever and take out a loan. And they gave you a plot there that was like the church owned that land, but you would build your house on it. And then when you finished paying off the construction, you would consecrate the property back over
donate it
to the church, basically. And then if you left the church, you left with nothing but the clothes on your back, right? And whatever you could grab, because you don't have assets. Like it's fear-based and it's so manipulative and it's just so greedy.
So how does this is where my mind gets so blown when I hear people like your both sets of grandparents that converted to this. How does any woman agree to this? This is like,
well, you have to like realize, like, take a time machine back.
That's true. It is a little different now.
And I don't believe, even when I was in this situation, it was not the same as it is right now. Like there are so many good people that have been led astray, and they're like happy and they're living good lives. And if anything, they could possibly be living what is a higher law, but not put in place with the proper authority.
Sure.
So
what they feel is a higher
right.
law.
Like you look at, like everyone gets so caught up on polygamy, and I have this way of looking at it that makes it so simple to me. And it's like, this is not doctrine, and it's not something that I can claim. Like the church does not say anything like this, but it's just kind of how I view it that makes me like, I feel good when I think of it this way. So like I see like the intimate relationships in a marriage can be so corrupted by the devil. So like that is what they're dealing with. Like they're dealing with jealousy, greed, evil, like abuse, right? All of these things that if you were to take all of those off the earth, like if they didn't exist and you went back down to just like what procreation is, it's not any of those evil things that are associated with it. Those are things that Satan uses to like change everyone's view, like the whole world views everything sex sells. Like you look at every song, every billboard, every TV
even every
show,
podcast,
every movie, most people's like TikTok and Instagrams, you know, like sex sells. Yeah. And like that is what is the driving force for Satan, I think, is he knows it destroys family, and it is some of the like the most sacred thing that he can go after is destroying the family and destroying this like beautiful thing. Yeah. And turning it into something that he has control over.
So are you saying you feel like Satan's kind of, you know, they're good people, but maybe they've been led astray thinking that that's the right thing to do, and that kind of destroys families? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm kind of saying too, like if you were to think of polygamy in a light that didn't have those things, and it was like not, you know what I mean? Like if
like it's not hypersexual.
Yeah, like if right now it doesn't work because it's just too evil. Yeah. And also we don't know, like the complexities of life are so, until you've gone through something so complex and so complicated, like that is what the history and the scriptures are. Like you look at these crazy stories and you're just like, how did that happen? Like Abraham's going to take his son up and like sacrifice him. Like it sounds crazy, but when you really like ponder and think about it, the complexities of it, you can maybe try to understand, but only if you've gone through hard things in your life too. So I just try to like picture a polygamy, like Joseph Smith was commanded to put that in place at that time for a special reason, right? Like if you don't have a time machine and you can't go back and see like what the saints were actually dealing with here, how many widowed women there were actually here, how many, like what they had to be doing, we don't know all of that. And so there is a time and a place for that, I think. And we also don't know how it fits into the eternal plan. Right. And so like this, for people that don't know all of this, it might seem really confusing, but I understand it. And I can see how it wouldn't be a problem if there wasn't jealousy and selfishness and lying and deceiving and, you know what I mean?
Sure. I
evil
agree.
things that can be associated with
that corrupt
like,
it.
Yeah.
So it's not God's law right now. At one time it was.
I do believe that he was commanded to put it in place, and who knows for what reasons exactly, but like he said, that's what he was commanded to do, and he didn't even like it. If you read the history.
Oh yeah.
Like it is like, it's so confusing, but the more I think about it, the more it just kind of makes sense for that time. But then like God can say, okay, you need to stop doing that now. It's not working. And if that prophet is told to do that and then he does it and nobody listens, then they all just go off and make their own churches. So now there's like all these different polygamy groups because they had something that was true being led by a prophet with authority. And then they decided to not listen to him. Sure. Like when the prophet says like, this is what we're supposed to do now. It's almost like, think about when Jesus came and the law of Moses was like fulfilled. And everyone's like, well, no, like this is what we do. We can't like not live the law of Moses. And he's teaching this higher law. Well,
it's a great comparison.
Yeah. Like if you're not going to follow the prophet that has the right authority, you get led astray. And I've seen these people be led astray, and it's heartbreaking because it just gets worse and worse. And that was what my whole talk was about, was the fruits of their labor. So if you take a true prophet and look at the fruits of their labor, like President Nelson is a true prophet. Look at the fruits of his labor. He inspires people to be better. He encourages people to do their best.
Does he seem different to you than the so-called prophets that you had?
Oh, that's the whole thing I'm trying to get across right now is the prophet before that I watched, and even Warren Jeffs when he became prophet, even worse. Like they just keep getting darker and darker and scarier and more controlling and more fearful, and the people are suffering and like just kind of left to like scramble because it's getting so bad for these people. And I still have family members that are in it. And it's like, the prophet. Now, I remember watching conference after I was baptized and being like, wow, this makes you feel so good. Like they're helping you to feel joy and love and encouragement. And like, even if they have to correct, it's not done in a shame on you, fearful way, which was what I was raised in. Yeah. So the fruits of the labor is one of the biggest ways to discern between a true prophet and a false prophet. So
this is so fascinating because like most people would see like you lived this one life and you read the Book of Mormon and believed in it. And then you live this totally different religion and life and read the Book of Mormon and believe in it both times, right?
yeah.
And so how it's so hard for my mind to wrap around this when you knew something was so false in this life that you're living, and yet you were able to convert fully believing in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Tell me how that happened and where Davey comes into play with that. Or did you already know her by the time she had joined the church? Or like, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, when we first met, I just knew she wasn't a member, and I kind of knew a little bit about
Okay,
her
so she
background.
wasn't a member
She was
then.
not a
Oh,
member,
wow.
Yeah, we dated
I was
for
19 when I was
And you
baptized.
were
We met when
in
I
ours.
was
grew
I
up-
18
grew up in the
when we met?
church? Yeah,
I think I was 18 when we met. And like, yeah.
I don't know. She wouldn't let me go inside her house at home, so I didn't know anything she was didn't like. It was too messy or something. So
My mom was a single mom with 6 kids and worked full time, sometimes 2 jobs. Like, there was no one cleaning and cooking.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it was gross.
Oh,
But
I have 6 kids and I
know, can
clean
you
all day, every
imagine?
day, and it's still a hot mess.
So she did really great with
So
what
we
she did,
dated
but-
for a while, and then we broke up for a while. And while we were broken up, she had a friend talk to her about joining the church. You want to share how your friend?
Oh, so this is wow. Okay, so
We
you
were actually
dated.
not together when I started taking the discussions and decided to get baptized. And we were still friends because we met country dancing.
Yeah.
And
And you guys are both phenomenal dancers. Those are like my favorite videos. They're so fun. Sorry, go on.
And he didn't tell me this until after we were married. I think that the reason why he broke up with me is because he realized he couldn't get married in the temple, and was just
And why is that important to you? Why was that important to you?
It was just a goal I'd always had. I mean, my parents were married in the temple, and I wanted a forever family. And
I'm going to add to that, though. I was also not being very nice to him. I think if that was the only reason,
yeah,
it wouldn't have been as big of a problem. But I was also not as good of a person as I am now. Like, I just wasn't very mature, and I was like not thinking of him as a person, and just kind of just being like, oh,
what
he's fun to
18-year-old
dance
is
with,
mature?
right? Like, so I wasn't being very nice either to make you not look bad.
So can I ask something then? What is the difference between like a temple marriage versus just getting married? Like why was that? I mean, I know it wasn't the only reason, but why was that such a deal breaker, big deal to you?
I've just always believed, family. I've grown up singing it. Families can be together forever, and I knew that's where it needed to happen.
So when people get married in the temple, then they're together forever,
For
like
eternity,
after you
all
die.
eternity, yeah.
I love
That's
that.
the big deal.
Yeah. And I actually love it. And I remember going to his family's house and seeing that relationship and just being like, I love this. I felt so good.
It felt
there.
different.
Absolutely. Like all of his siblings got along. Me and my siblings did not get along. I have a few, we all get along now because we're adults, but like it was pretty crazy. And I just remember that like we didn't get to do things together as a family.
Yeah.
Like we had just like so much dysfunction, and we were just so broken because of just the cards that were dealt. And going over there and seeing them all be together for like Thanksgiving and Christmas and just like playing games together and just being silly, and like then watching the videos of them dancing on stage, I was just like, oh, I love this. Like I want this. I want this for my future. So I mean, we built it.
And were you already a dancer? That's such a side note, but so you taught her how to do all this stuff?
Well, no,
you
she was
did.
already. Well, she was attending, and I had
was
started
going
to get
to
pretty
the
good.
dance, but
and yeah,
He was good, and so I just followed what he told me to do.
yeah.
You guys have tell them where they can see these videos of you dancing because they're so good.
I mean, we have a few playlists teaching people how to do it on our YouTube channel.
You do?
Yeah.
And
Old
what's your
videos,
YouTube
videos.
channel?
One of our first dates was he decided to grab his camera and have us teach country dancing.
Like within a week,
like sell the
within weeks
DVDs.
of knowing each other, we made an instructional video. So
And you're
we're
like,
young.
I'm just learning this. I have to teach people. now.
Well, by then we had gotten pretty good because we would go 2 or 3 times a week and be there for like 4 hours dancing straight. Like we did not stop unless we just like got a quick drink from the water fountain. Like
we
no
can
wonder
barely
why I was
last a
in
full
such.
song now,
Right now, last night we danced a full song and I thought I was going to die. So we're not the same. But
You know, the last time I danced with my husband was the day we got married. Like at our.
well, we're gonna change that.
I expect you here weekly. Wait, okay, so tell people where they can see it. What's your YouTube channel?
April and Davey's our YouTube channel.
April and Davey.
If you go on all our playlists, we have some
Okay.
instructional.
And there's some YouTube stuff. We always like on our reels, we'll throw it up every once in a while.
So
but
cool. Okay, so I don't mean to be all over the place, but I have to ask. So, okay, the most notorious person in all of polygamy is Warren Jeffs.
Yeah.
Right? Like from us on the outside, who, I've been crazy watching all these documentaries because
Yeah.
it's so fascinating and mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
And you were with him every single day.
Yeah.
By the way, my husband, Sean, my husband, you guys have met him. His dad taught Warren Jeffs as a school teacher in 5th grade.
Really.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that? And he said he was the most quiet kid, never said a
I
word.
could totally see that.
Really?
He was probably
that how he was?
terrified to say a word. He was probably raised in fear too. You know what I mean?
Did he? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's sad, actually.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
Did he grow up knowing there was a chance he was going to be the prophet?
I think so.
Wow.
Because if it seemed like how they had it structured was just like the prophet went from like father to son.
yeah.
I don't know exactly how all that works, but as far as my understanding goes, that's what I think.
I have a question for you. Is it more common when people leave that they completely write off church and religion
Yeah.
altogether? Or
Absolutely.
kinda don't
your
blame
story is
them.
less common.
No, I totally agree with that. And I do not even judge them or blame them
Yeah,
because
yeah.
my experience is not the same as their experience. And
Yeah.
they have probably experienced things that I would never understand. Right.
Right.
So I only have the stories that I've heard from the people I know that have left. And when I do hear those stories, I'm like, okay, like I get it. Like that's
Yeah.
rough. And I have no worries about them either because I know that they're going to be judged fairly
Yeah.
according to like all of the experiences, the complexities that I talked about earlier. Like that is so much of a factor in this.
Yeah.
And they're just good people now trying to live good lives, Like I have so many family members and friends that they really are. They're just great people trying their best to be like high functioning, good citizens.
Yeah.
And they are
Doing
like,
what they've been taught is righteous and good.
yeah. But like to get out of it, a lot of them have sacrificed a lot to leave. I know my aunt had sacrificed so much to leave.
Oh, tell me about your aunt, because I know, like you said earlier, if you leave, then you're leaving with just the shirt on your back.
And she
because-
did.
Wow. And did she have her kids with her?
At the time she didn't because like the tricky thing is that they'll like brainwash the kids against whoever leaves.
Even her own
and-
mother.
Yeah.
So
But
sad.
now things are good. I mean, she left years and years ago, probably a little after we left because she already lived down there.
In Colorado Springs.
Yeah. And she's since even gotten her house and stuff back through judgments because
Would she want to go back and live there?
she does have
Wow.
like she's been able to buy a bunch of real estate there because when their church started failing financially, they had all this land, tons and tons of land, and the value goes up on that and the taxes go up on that.
yeah.
But like if they own it, they're supposed to be paying the taxes and they weren't, So then the judgment kind of said like whoever can prove that they lived there can just buy the house for whatever they owe on the taxes.
Wow.
So then the ownership of the houses started to go back into the people, which is great.
yeah.
But it's really messy right now, and I don't know all of it because I'm so like removed from it now. I just kind of hear bits and pieces from my mom, from people that are still there, cousins and stuff. But
So when you were younger, did you have like the long dresses and the hair with the braid and everything like that?
yeah, I had the best poof or the wave, going on, and the French braids. Like it kind of set me up to have an advantage when I went to hair school. I was like, the
you went
only
to hair
one-
school?
Yeah, I did hair school. I was like the only one that knew how to braid. But I'm like, oh, that was a good thing that came from it. I know how to braid hair. So
You know what? I will say, so Shanna and Corey Lee they were saying, we're talking about the vacation you guys went on a few years ago, and they were singing your guys' praises, said the nicest things about you guys. And they specifically said about you that you're so good with children, like just so patient, and you don't get worked up and feeling chaotic when things are chaos.
Maybe.
That might be one good thing that came from it, right? Because aren't you always surrounded by a lot of kids in those, or is that accurate?
Our family, I was younger. I was actually, no, I don't, I had a lot of like nieces and nephews that I loved. I just loved babies.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe I always remember when I was younger, I just like, that was the aspiration, was like, you want to grow up and have babies.
Yeah.
But then
That was my
stayed with
aspiration,
me,
though.
right? But like that was like a passion of mine. I don't think that I was brainwashed into that,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I actually really love that. I love babies. I see other people's babies and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh,
I
I'm
wanna
still
see
that
the
way
baby.
too.
So
Yeah,
that's
I
just
mean, I'm
me
sure there is
naturally,
the
I
nature
think.
and nurture thing, but honestly,
Yeah.
like, I mean, a lot of girls and men too, but I think there's more women that feel that way, that you just naturally feel this sense of nurturing and you love children and babies and stuff. Not everyone, but
Yeah.
a lot of us.
I don't know. Like I have a lot of good skills that you could attribute to that. Like
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at sewing, but I feel like my mom taught me that, like the school was pretty academic.
Yeah.
They would have like a home ec class that they would teach you cooking skills and stuff that I learned some things, but I mean, you can learn that in high school here too.
Yeah.
It was mostly I feel like the best thing I learned from that was how to discern between like a real prophet and a false prophet.
But they didn't
That
necessarily
is a
teach
gift
you that.
now though, but they did in a roundabout way.
Interesting.
Because I could see, like I distinctly remember in 7th grade feeling like, oh, I'm going to have to marry like an old guy. Oh. And that kind of was like, oh, I
can't imagine.
like I liked a boy in my class and I was just like, I'm not going to be able to marry a boy my age. And like, so when my mom was like, oh, you're going to public school, it was the best day of my life, but also the scariest day of my life because
And how old were you when that happened?
8th grade. So I
So about
mean,
14-ish, 13. So
13.
So your entire
Yeah.
life up until being a teenager was in this polygamy group.
yeah.
And how did you adjust in school?
It was rough. I mean, I was kind of just like thrown into this den of wolves. Like, I don't know. But I noticed the difference between, there was like the kids that just saw a new girl and was just like, oh, I'm going to go mess with her. One girl came up and was like, what are you staring at? Like, like swearing at me. And I was just like,
Good.
I was like, oh my gosh, like no one's ever talked to me
You're
like
like,
this.
this is Babylon. They were right.
So I was just like, she was going to beat me up. She said she was going to beat me up at lunch because
sad.
she like started yelling at me and I went, psh. And she was like, don't psh me. I'm going to beat you up at lunch. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what
Junior
did I
high's
get
the
myself
worst.
into? But like a few days passed, she didn't beat me up. And then she realized that I probably had no clue what was going on. And then she kind of like befriended me just to manipulate me.
Oh my gosh.
Had me bringing clothes that she would take and like never give back. And I was just like, what am I doing? And then there were other girls that were just like so nice. They would just be like, your hair's so pretty. Like a compliment. I want kids, like it's back to school time right now. I don't know when this is going to go up, but like I teach my kids like a compliment. You don't know what someone's story is. It can like save a life. It really can. So like I remember.
Is that how you felt?
Yes, I remember these compliments still from 8th grade from these kids, and I know they were LDS. Like I found out later, but like these LDS kids that would like notice a lonely friend and compliment and like just smile and be nice. It made all the difference for me, and I slowly started to like gravitate towards those people. And I liked them. And I actually tried to get baptized when I was 16. I had a friend that was like, come take seminary with me, which I love that she offered that to me. And I loved seminary. And I felt like I know all the answers. I've read the Book of Mormon 100 times because that was part of like the school. You'd had to read and take notes on the Book of Mormon every day. So I took it and it was my favorite class. But then I took the missionary discussions and they were kind of like, their hands were tied because I was like, if it was my whole family, there wouldn't have been a problem. We would have all just gotten baptized. But my mom was like not there, and she's still not there.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I don't know if she'll ever be there, which I don't blame her.
Gosh,
right?
yeah.
Not my experiences; those are her experiences. So I couldn't get baptized because the whole family wasn't. That was just like the rule. That's still the rule. Like they don't want kids put into difficult situations where they could be kicked out of the house or disowned.
Yeah, right.
Because that stuff happens sadly when you join a church. Sometimes people lash out and
Yeah.
They're not okay with that. I don't think my mom would have. I don't think it would have been a problem, but I also think there was wisdom in it because I don't think I was ready.
Right.
And I like between 16 and 19, I changed and grew a lot and made a lot of mistakes, honestly.
Sure.
But I feel like that
Every
helped
teenager
me
does,
to
yeah.
actually realize like the difference between good and evil
Yeah.
and what I wanted my life to look like. And I remember praying in my closet, like when I was this is back to where we were going.
That's what my next question was anyway. So
My
I'm like,
friend,
that's
and
great.
so he broke up with me. My
He
friend
broke
and-
up with you.
He broke up with me because I wasn't being very nice. Let's be real. And he's a good guy. And my friend from hair school, I don't know what we were talking about. I probably said something horrible. I don't know. We were walking out to lunch and she turned to me and was like, "Wait, I thought you were a member of our church." And I was like, "No, I'm not. It doesn't matter." And she was like, "Oh, you should make that a personal goal." And I remember
She
being-
just straight up said that to you.
Yes. She's like, "What? You need to make this a personal goal." And I was like so annoyed and bugged by her because I was like, who does she think she is? Like, I'm a good person. You don't need to go to church to be a good person. Like, that was my opinion. And I still believe that. Like, I know so many good people that are not
Sure.
members of our church that are wonderful, great
Sure.
people. I've met them from all over the world. Like, when we take in exchange students, they don't, most of them have never even heard someone say they believe in God. Like,
Wow.
it's totally culture shock to be in a family that is so religious. But I just realized, like, I am a better person now. And I wasn't a terrible person then. I wasn't like doing anything horrible. But now I am a better person. I'm more thoughtful of other people and their feelings, and I serve more, and it brings me more joy. Like, I have more peace and more joy, and it's just such a better way to live, and it's such a joyful way to live. And I can compare it to how I felt when I was like 17, 18. And I'll never forget that comparison.
Because you've lived now the polygamous religion lifestyle, not having any religion lifestyle, and then Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So
Right.
you've kind of had the whole gamut of everything.
Yeah.
Wow. That's an amazing story to hear. So Davey, I want to hear your perspective when you broke up with her. So tell me your perception of this, and then with her, like you said, you got baptized when you were broken up, and then you find out. Tell me
Well,
what happens with that.
We heard she was getting baptized, so I got the whole family together and
We meaning your family?
my siblings, my
Wow.
mom.
Oh, because you had already met them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow,
because
okay.
We were dating for.
So we met when I was 18, and then I didn't get baptized until like, almost a year later.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
So we were dating for a whole year. Yeah. I mean, we knew each other.
we
Really
were.
Oh,
we were
yeah.
friends
Oh,
for,
yeah, a
like,
whole year,
a
yeah.
chunk of months, and then we dated for a few months, and then we
Yeah.
were broken up, but still like friends.
Yeah.
And
We,
when,
we
You
showed
guys
up
can
to
do
the
that? Wow.
baptism. There was a lot of other
I
boys
think I
there.
called you
Yeah,
the
I
night
think you
before,
let
and
me
I was
know.
like,
She let
"Oh,
me
by the way,
know.
I'm getting baptized tomorrow." And he was like, "What?" Like, he didn't even know I was taking the discussions, because my friend that offended me, and I was way bugged at her, she was so great to like not just let it end there and be like, "You should make that a personal goal." Like, she put the work in and was like, "Come to Relief Society, come to my singles ward. Like, we're all hanging out, we're doing this, we're making cookies and bringing them here." Like,
Can I ask a
was-
question about that really
yeah.
quick? When someone asks you to do those things, like come to church and meet with missionaries and go to Relief Society, which is the women's group and stuff, what do they get out of it?
I
Like,
think
why was she
that-
pushing this?
I think that she just had true love in her heart.
And she knew
honestly.
this was something good to give you?
Yeah, I think she was just being a missionary, and I am so grateful for her, because she was a more missionary to me than that sweet boys that baptized me,
Yeah.
which I'm so grateful for them too, because like that was how I was able to get baptized.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't have the authority to baptize me, right? But like these boys that sacrificed their lives for 2 years, they don't realize how much they're changing families. Like, it is so awesome. I'm gonna cry because like I have a son that's gonna be next year be eligible to go on mission. I don't know if he's gonna choose to or not, but like that sacrifice of 2 years, they don't realize how it changes whole lives and families and generations. Like, it's awesome that they do that. But she was like, I'll be honest with you, I felt totally out of place when I started going to those things. I felt like I did not belong. This is like, I've tried this stupid thing before. They're just going to tell me I can't get baptized. Like, I was a little bitter, right? Like, and I just remember slowly starting to feel more like I belonged there. And then when I was like in my closet praying before I was like deciding if I was going to get baptized or not, I remember just being like, Heavenly Father, is this really what you want me to do? Like, is this good? Is this right? And with like the best thing came to my mind, and I know it was the Holy Ghost. It was like, if you live this gospel, you will know for sure.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that's my answer. Like, I just have to live it and then I'll know.
Wow.
And that's the faith, you know, like I didn't get lightning strike being like, yes, it is.
I don't think anyone does, right?
But I like loved that answer of like, if you live it, then you'll know for sure. And I can tell you, like, I know for sure.
That it always makes me think of the phrase, don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think a lot of people are like, they think they're living it, but they're still living it in a fear. And I had to remove the fear. And like, even when I was growing up, I remember like the fear of the second coming, because all they talked about was like the horror and the brimstone and the fire and like being the same. But don't worry, the saints will be lifted up. But like the main focus was on
Earthquakes and tempests.
the scary, right? And I view it differently now.
Yeah.
Like I really am so excited
Yeah.
for the second coming. Like, come what may, I am so excited for it.
So cool.
So when you have like a relationship with Christ and you focus on the relationship with Christ, like that fear is gone. And so anyone that is feeling fearful, I think you really just focus on Christ and his life and living that way and living the higher law, because that is hard to do. Like, if you read the Sermon on the Mount, that is almost impossible. It's impossible for us sometimes, right? But we have to take it like baby steps.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to get offended and hurt over things. And
a choice.
Realizing, like, when I was baptized, one of the 70 came and talked to a group of adults that had been baptized, and the thing that he talked to us about, I will never forget, was that exact thing I'm talking about now. Like, every single person in the church is a human, and they're going to make mistakes. And sometimes they get it wrong. Sometimes stake presidents get it wrong. Sometimes bishops get it wrong.
We all do.
Right. And he's like, you have to be able to still have faith and realize that, like, they got it wrong and it's okay. You need to pick yourself up and keep going and still live the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Which is so cool.
Which was awesome for me to hear back then, because I really did need that.
I think you just, in a roundabout way, answered that first question that I asked, which is, how are you guys always so happy? You have this solid belief, and you just keep going with it. And Davey, I'm so sorry, but back so back to you coming. Again. So you and your entire family came to her baptism.
Yeah.
And then what are you thinking at this point? Like, were you thinking anything about getting back with her or anything? Or
I don't even know how
no.
it
Be
developed.
honest. It was like, we're getting married. Just kidding.
like, how could you resist?
No, what's funny is you did say that the first time you met me. That's the rumor. You like, or the first time you were with your friends, you told them, like, I'm going to marry that girl. This is before we started dating and before we broke up.
Yeah.
But it's funny because then he broke up with me, and then I didn't think he was going to.
He had to put you on your place.
Yeah.
Teach you a lesson.
She was. I noticed a difference, and we started dancing and dating again, and we just went for it.
Do you know what made our relationship work though? Is that when we first were dating, we weren't putting God first. It was just like, whatever we want.
Yeah.
And then when we broke up and got back together, we were reading scriptures together. We were praying together, and we put God first, and everything worked out. So like, if you think that you're with the wrong person, just put God first, and then you'll know. Like, maybe you are, but
that's great
most
advice.
likely, if you guys both are putting God first, then you probably will work out.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I just had this conversation the other day, and with marriage and dating and everything, I say this to my brother all the time too. Like, you have to put God first in your life and in your marriage, and you have to be with someone who does the same thing.
Right.
Because if I get mad at my husband, it doesn't really matter, because I love God enough to never hurt him. Even if I'm super mad, I love God too much to do anything or to go cheat or do anything like that. And so that's what keeps these marriages going and keeps them healthy. Sorry, go on. So anyway, sorry, Davey, I want to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, I mean, the rest is history. We got married in the temple, and we started dating, and I think we got back together, and she said something like, we'll give it one more go, and if it doesn't work, then we're done.
But everything fell into place so easy. Like, it was, don't you think it was easy?
Yeah.
Like, our first year of marriage, I heard someone say, like, oh, the first year of marriage is the worst. And I remember at the end of that, I was like, we got it made. That was easy. And that's not true either for everyone. It's like that.
No, it's not.
That was our easiest year of marriage,
And we didn't
right?
wait super long to have kids.
We thought
and
we
she
would,
was a
but then
natural mom, feeding kids
didn't.
and taking care of them and nursing them and giving birth naturally. Just all of it just
my
came so
Yeah,
natural.
I did that 5 times.
Just came, everything
Wait,
just
what happened
came
with the sixth
so-
one?
I was like, I'm going to try something
You're
new.
so weak. I'm just kidding.
She just wanted to
It
try
was
something
wonderful
else.
to have a break. And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
But I also can see the good and bad in both of those. That's a whole nother podcast.
Oh, yeah. No, it is. I know. I talked about this with Julie Boyer. I'm like, there is no shame in how you want to give birth. Like,
I know. I
no.
think everyone needs to just
However
do
you
how they
feel
feel
right, you do you.
Intuition wise is right.
But yeah, she was always just great with kids, and she's strong in the church now. Like, she went through that refiner's fire, and she's a rock.
And do you feel like that's helped your marriage?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It
Like I
has.
said, like I don't think we would have worked out even for another day if we didn't have God first.
Oh, I love
It
that.
wouldn't have worked out. I know it wouldn't have worked out because it didn't. Like we tried it that way and it didn't work.
Has that helped you in parenting? Because your kids are great kids.
Yeah, we're not the perfect parents either, but like
No one is.
I feel like as I tell my son told me this actually, my oldest son, he says, kids are like pancakes. The first one turns out a little weird. And I'm like, you're not weird, but like that's his analogy is like, I'm all, if anything, that's our fault because we had no idea what we were
No
doing.
one knows what they're doing.
But we've gotten, don't you feel like you have 6 kids? Don't you
Yeah.
feel like you're doing things a little differently with your 6th
Oh,
than you
yeah.
did with your first? And I think that's part of life too. Like you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes.
I almost feel like with my first though, I was so like, I want to do this so perfectly. And now I'm like, they're gonna be fun.
Well, I thought I was doing things so perfectly, but then maybe I was having a little bit too much control and like,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe other things, letting them slip too
Yeah.
much. Like I was a hairstylist and be like, oh, you can put the baby in front of baby Einstein for 2 hours while you do hair. And he'd just sit there and watch it. But now I'm realizing like, probably not the best choice. I'm not doing that with my last
Yeah,
kid,
right,
you know?
right, yeah.
So, I don't know. But yeah, I think that we use the gospel in our parenting. Absolutely.
I think just having the right focus. Yeah, I mean, focusing on the long haul, the long run, keeping that vision of what you want your family to look
Well, then I want to ask you about that because it seems like so many people right now say, and this is no judgment. I come from a broken home, if you want to call it that, but it seems like so many people, the second they don't feel super in love, then they're like, oh, you know, it didn't work out. We fell out of love. Like, what would you say to that?
Well, we actually did another podcast on this, but it was like, do the things with your wife that you did when you were dating.
Love it. Go
You fell in
dancing.
love
Continue
for a
to
reason and you were in love.
Continue to do those things. Like, don't stop doing the same things you did to wow her when you were dating.
It is so
I
easy
love
to get
that.
stuck in the grind for sure. Yeah.
You know how many women are going to hear that and be like, aw.
I know. It's hard though. I think there's a lot of people that are kind of doing everything they can and maybe they're not getting it reciprocated. So it's sticky. Life is messy. And maybe that's what I would say to everyone is like understand that everyone has something hard they're going through. And maybe that is your hard right now. And you can lean on Christ and still get help with that and inspiration that is specifically geared right to you and answers for that. And if you're using that tool, you're going to have success. No, even if it doesn't end how you thought it would end, it's going to be good. So
I love that advice. Thank you.
Everything's going to be okay.
Specifically geared towards you and that everything's going to be
And
okay.
if
I
it's not
love that.
okay, everything's going to be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, then it's not the end.
I heard that recently and I love that.
I love it.
I love that. Well, thank you guys so much for coming here and doing
Thank
this
you.
and sharing your fascinating story and your awesome advice. You guys are great people.